It's the dead of night in Boston, and the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum stands eerily quiet, bathed in the soft glow of streetlights. Inside, the world's most priceless art collection rests in silence, unaware that in just a few hours, it will be ripped from its walls. At 1:24 a.m., two men walk up to the museum's entrance, dressed as police officers. The guards inside have no idea that what is about to happen will become one of the most famous and audacious art heists in history. Over $500 million worth of art masterpieces that the world would never again see on display are about to vanish without a trace. But this isn't just any robbery. This was a meticulously planned heist, and it would baffle investigators, haunt art lovers, and leave the FBI with one of the most perplexing, unsolved mysteries of all time. This is the story of the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum heist. It's March 18, 1990. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston had closed its doors for the night. The guards on duty, Richard Abath and his colleague, were doing their routine patrols. Abath, 23 years old, had worked at the museum for just a few months. A young man who was still learning the ropes, he never imagined that tonight would be the night the world of art would be forever altered. As the clock struck 1:00 a.m., two figures, dressed in full police uniforms, approached the museum's front entrance. They rang a doorbell and waited. Richard Abath answered. The men, appearing as officers, claimed they were investigating a disturbance. One of the men said, "We're here to check on the premises. We've had some reports of suspicious activity." Abath, confused but compliant, let them in. The thieves, who later became known as the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum robbers, weren't just posing as any officers. They had done their homework. They knew exactly who would be on duty and when, and they knew the building's layout like the back of their hands. Once inside, the thieves identified themselves as officers investigating the museum's security. They quickly subdued Abath and his colleague, handcuffing them and locking them in the museum's basement. There was no sign of struggle. It was smooth, clean, precise. These weren't amateurs. They were professionals. The first thief told Abath, "We don't want to hurt you. Just stay here and you'll be fine." And for the next hour, Abath and his colleague were forced to sit in the dark while the two robbers did their work. As Abath sat in the basement, unable to do anything, the thieves made their way through the dark corridors of the museum. Their mission was clear: steal the most valuable and famous pieces of art from the museum's vast collection. And they knew exactly what they were looking for. Their first stop was the Dutch Room, home to one of the most iconic paintings in the world, the Concert by Johannes Vermeer. They took their time, carefully removing the painting from its frame. The thieves weren't in any rush. They were methodical. They knew how important it was to get in and out quickly, without triggering any alarms, but they also had the luxury of time. With the guards locked away and the museum practically empty, they could take their time and pick the most valuable pieces without interference. Alongside the concert, they also took The Lady and the Harp by Vermeer, another priceless painting. The thieves moved with eerie precision, dismantling frames, handling paintings with the utmost care. They knew what they were doing. It wasn't just a robbery, it was an art heist of the highest order. They didn't stop at the Vermeers. The thieves also took Self-Portrait by Rembrandt, a work that had been part of the museum's collection for over a century. Then, they moved on to Degas's The Little Dancer of 14 Years, a stunning bronze statue. And perhaps most surprising of all, they took the museum's prized eagle frame, an ornate gilded frame that had been a fixture in the museum for decades. All told, the thieves stole 13 pieces of art, some of which would later be estimated at over $500 million in value. The most incredible part of this heist: there was no forced entry. The thieves didn't break any windows or set off alarms. They simply walked in and out of the museum, took what they wanted, and disappeared into the night without a trace. In a matter of hours, one of the most valuable collections in the world was gone, and the world had no idea how or why. When the authorities finally arrived on the scene, the museum was in chaos. Guards were tied up in the basement, and the prized artwork was nowhere to be found. The FBI was called in immediately, led by Special Agent Thomas McShane. McShane had worked on high-profile cases before, but nothing like this. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum heist was unlike anything he had ever encountered. At first, the FBI believed that the robbery was the work of a gang. But after investigating further, it became clear that the thieves had knowledge of the museum's security systems. The security cameras, which normally provided a record of any activity, had been mysteriously disabled during the heist. Even stranger, the thieves had taken the time to remove the security tapes, leaving no footage of their movements. There were no fingerprints, no DNA, and no witnesses. It was as if the thieves had simply vanished into thin air. As the investigation deepened, the FBI began to suspect that this wasn't a simple robbery. The thieves had known exactly what they were doing. They had a list of the museum's most valuable pieces and took only those works, leaving behind many others. Their movements were calculated and clean. This wasn't just a crime, it was a well-planned, professional operation. For months, the FBI followed every lead they could find. But the trail quickly grew cold. No one had seen anything. No one knew anything. The only thing that remained was a museum full of empty frames and the haunting question: where were the stolen paintings? As time passed, the investigation continued to hit dead ends. The FBI offered a $5 million reward for any information leading to the recovery of the stolen art. Theories started to swirl, and rumors began to surface. Some believed that the paintings were stolen to order for a private collector, someone with deep pockets and connections in the art world. Others thought the paintings had been sold on the black market. There was even speculation that the thieves had simply hidden the artwork, waiting for the heat to die down before selling it off. One theory stood out above the rest. The FBI believed that the heist might have been orchestrated by a notorious art thief named Carmine Romano, a figure known for orchestrating complex heists in the art world. Romano had connections in organized crime, and his network was capable of moving large amounts of stolen goods across borders. But despite their best efforts, the FBI could never pin the crime on Romano. Meanwhile, the museum had its own theory. Was it an inside job? Did someone working at the museum have a hand in the heist? But after a thorough investigation of the staff and security team, the FBI found no clear connections. The case grew colder by the year. As the years turned into decades, the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum heist became a part of criminal legend. The stolen paintings, valued at over $500 million, were still missing. No one knew where they were or who took them. The FBI continued to pursue leads, but nothing concrete emerged. In 2013, the FBI made another attempt at solving the case when they uncovered new leads, suggesting that the paintings might still be hidden somewhere in New England. But despite renewed efforts, the heist remains unsolved. The stolen masterpieces have never been recovered, and the mystery of who committed the crime continues to haunt both the art world and law enforcement. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, despite the loss, remains open today, with the empty frames where the stolen masterpieces once hung serving as a reminder of what was taken. The story of the heist lives on, not just as an unsolved crime, but as a symbol of how fragile the world of art can be, and how, in the blink of an eye, something priceless can be lost forever. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum heist is a story of daring, deception, and mystery. It's a story that has left the art world shaken, the FBI stumped, and the public fascinated. It's the perfect crime, so clean, so calculated, so brazen, that it still remains unsolved today. Who were the thieves? Where are the paintings? Will they ever be recovered? These questions continue to haunt us, as the greatest art heist in history unfolds in the shadows, leaving behind only a trail of stolen art and unanswered questions.